Test.
Test, test, test. Test. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Say test, test, test again.
Test, test, test. Oh, the noise is back.
Maar hij gaat buiten het 35. Oh ja, er zit 30 seconden vertraging in. Nog een keer test.
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 Test. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
En maak even een foto.
So I'm hoping the sign interpreters can still understand. Yes, I can count backwards. That sounds all right. At least my neural network is working still. I guess we're coming back online soon.
And Hank fixed it, and he didn't do anything.
And the good thing is, Hank fixed it. He's with me in the studio today, and he didn't do anything, so it must be the AI.
No, I turned Teams on and off again.
Oh, this is a classic case of turning it off and on again. That's even better. That's so cool. And Seth is back as well. Hey Seth, welcome back.
We zijn nog niet met het scherm.
Hello.
Veronica, right?
Yeah, Veronica is joining us pretty soon.
Oh, she's also.
Hello. Welcome back. So we had this weird thing happening, Seth, where we tried turning it off and on again, and it works. Yeah, it still works in 2020, and I'm so happy that it does that.
Back online.
Okay, we're back online. Hey, Veronica, welcome to the show. Glad to have you. So.
Hi.
Hey. We do have sound as well. We're back, people, and it's all working again. We turned stuff off and on again, and we're back with Veronica, and she is going to talk to us about. Actually, she is going to talk again about anomalies and the metrics advisor. So, yeah. So, Veronica, what sort of work do you do during the workday?
So officially, I'm a senior software engineer at Liberty Mutual in Boston. I am currently working from home, as most of the people here, but I am an MVP, Microsoft MVP in AI. So I do lots of machine learning and AI work and research on the side. So I'm super excited to share what I figured out.
Cool, cool.
That's impressive. Now, Veronica, I met you, but like, it was how many years ago? It was, I think I was in Boston, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, I think a couple of years ago. And I think Scott Gottlieb was here with his Red Short tour.
Mm.
And from there, I actually remember that you can speak Russian.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty cool event. But here's a question for you. Tell us about your journey into getting into AI. How did that happen? What got you excited about it?
It is an interesting story, nothing crazy, but I was working at University of Massachusetts Medical School several years ago, and there we were trying to figure out a better solution for some of our issues, and we had an app where it basically was an app for meditation, where people needed to submit their mood before meditation and then after meditation, and it was just horrible experience. It was just a drop down basically where you choose, okay, I feel good or I feel bad. And when I saw the drop down, I'm like, okay, my mood is down right away. So we decided to figure out how we can improve it. And that was my first interaction with cognitive services. And I just fell in love with cognitive services. I started learning more about them. So we ended up using those cognitive services, some of the vision cognitive services. I think at that time, Face API was separate, so we used that one. And then I was so excited, so I started learning more and more about cognitive services, and that's how I got into machine learning. So now I am trying to build custom models using ML.NET and other tools. And yeah, it's a fun story.
That's really cool. So basically, you started with you wanted to actually solve a problem. You found some cognitive services, and then that led you down the path to building custom models. So tell me about the transition between calling a service and then building your own model. Was that a big jump? Is that something that all of us could do?
I think anyone can do that. I don't have a PhD in machine learning or any specific education. I don't even have like any specific background in building machine learning models. But starting with pre-built cognitive services and then use the custom cognitive services and then move to something like ML.NET. Since I'm a .NET developer, for me, that transition wasn't super hard, but definitely I had to read some books about machine learning and how what techniques I'm supposed to use, what tools available, and what is responsible AI, and just lots of different stuff.
That's really cool. So here's another question for you, and hopefully you can hear me. Everyone was saying they could hear the air in my room. I see this sounds bad, and now I'm fixing it. So thank you for all. I'm looking at the chat, making sure. So the question I have for you is, once you jump to building your own models, when is a good time to, like, how do I know when I should build my own models versus whether I should just use a service?
I would recommend to check available services first, since that's already pre-built for you by researchers and actually specialists who work on that all their life. And if you don't see something that is suitable for your specific project, then you can start thinking about custom solution, and then based on that solution or amount of data that you have, you can figure out what tools you need to use.
That's cool. And so here's my question to you. When you started building your own model, what was the thing that was hardest for you? Or like what was something that you thought, boy, like how would you help me if I was moving into that realm? What was like one tip you have for me?
So definitely reading about best practices and building models in order to understand how that all actually works. And then AutoML is awesome. It does lots of heavy lifting for you. And then you are getting really great models with less effort.
That's cool. Looks like we have another guest, Willem.
Yeah, Marian is here as well. So maybe this is a good question for you, Marian.
Yeah, I can try.
I know you are
I think I
teaching
can build up
people,
my
and especially
prior,
women, to start in AI
or
and
prior
data
thought
analysis.
that I think if
stuff.
you, I'm really
Can you tell us a
making
little
things
bit
for
about the learning
starters,
curve
so
that's
people without
involved with
any
learning machine learning through cognitive
medical
services and then
background
onto
or
custom
whatever
models?
you would need. So, but always with a side mark that if you really want to use the models, then get in touch with somebody who really knows the algorithms behind it, because I think that's always good to check But the nice thing is that without having too much knowledge, you can directly start out of the box. And we will see that also later on, that basically using existing technology, existing models, then it's very easy to start. And I think as a developer, I think it's also nice that you can grow yourself. So you can also start with using out of the box stuff and then going to custom, going to writing your own code, improving things. But yeah, I would take it step by step. I would recommend you to do some statistics. And computers do great things. It's not good, I think. Yeah. Exactly, and just make sure that you have somebody aside, I would say, that can maybe help you a little bit, just to be sure, because well, the servers are getting better and better, but at the end you have to know what you do. I mean, you cannot use everything for everything, right? So a little bit of advice normally helps, and I would say look for a nice mentor, but just start building, because I think that's the way you learn.
That's awesome. So there's a couple questions in the chat that I want to throw out to you two experts that are here. Well, all of you experts that are here. The first one is from Gauthier. As a beginner in AI, is it useless to work with AI locally, or should we use the cloud for big processing needed for AI? That's the first one.
Sorry, could you repeat that question, or can we read it somewhere?
Absolutely. So if, as a beginner in AI, is it useless to start training things locally, or should I always just start with something in the cloud?
That depends.
So what does it depend on? I mean, help me out.
Well, it depends. First of all, the question you would like to solve, I would say, and the amount of data you have available. So if you have a small data set, well, then the question is it enough? Or do you just want to classify an image and you can use, for example, the custom services directly, so you don't need any compute yourself, actually? So I think first define your question and look at what kind of data you have, and then see whether you can use already pre-built models or services. And if not, then I would say build it in the cloud, because then you can scale it.
So that's awesome, because I think if I'm understanding you right, you're basically saying yes and no. It just depends on what you're doing. And I think like what you said, I think the key insight for me is I don't think people recognize that AI is just an alternative way of programming. And so you have to start on the question. I love the answer. It depends on what you're trying to solve. So thank you for that, Marian. Let's go to the next question. What articles or books do you recommend for a person starting to use AI and ML? Veronica and Marian, those questions are for both of you.
I can try to answer this question. I actually just read Microsoft documentation for all the tools, because that documentation is amazing. It has examples, also some samples in GitHub, right, with everything that you need, with data, with all connected tools. If it's a cognitive service, then you just need to grab your keys and endpoint and just go for it and start playing with it. I also read just a couple of books. I don't remember authors from the top of my head, but it was just general understanding of machine learning and deep learning. But I think there are lots of good online resources.
Marian, what about you?
Yeah, I think a little bit different background. So I have lots of books on statistics and research methodology. And there's a lot out there. And let's say a starter course or a really good course, it's not specifically for starters. I think everyone who wants to start with ML was from Andrew Ng on Coursera. I think that professor is really, really great, and you learn the basics. It's well taught, absolutely recommended. And as far as it goes through the services, I think we can all explore Microsoft Learn, and we have the whole Microsoft Docs, where you find loads of information, loads of also workshop material. You can do exercises. So that's sort of the applied knowledge.
So here's another question, and I think this follows along from what you all were saying. Like, I get this sense, and maybe I'm wrong, but I see two camps when we talk about like learning actual machine learning, not just calling cognitive service, which is you should totally do because it's awesome. Some people say like we should start with linear algebra and calculus, and others say we should start with let's just build a model. And to me, it's a bottom up versus a top down approach. Which one do you both prefer and why? Do you see my question? I'll start with you, Marian.
Yeah, well, yeah, I start with the linear regression. Sorry for that, and calculus. And why? Well, I think, well, again, it depends because it depends on the type of learner you are. And I think for some students, it's really good to get those basics. And one important thing is that, for example, if you do a linear regression, it's you have rules. And if you don't know the rules, the thing is that if you start using a service directly, you don't know which rules you have to apply. Now you can assume that all the services already cover those assumptions you have, but you're not sure. So in that way, I say it helps if you have some background. On the other hand, maybe that's just a step too far for some people. So then I would say just build a model, get inspired, and do your regression basics later on.
What do you think?
I definitely agree with Marian. That's really good point. It depends on what kind of learner you are. I can't completely distance myself from linear algebra and statistics because I had those courses in my undergrad. Because my undergrad is in computer science, so we had those courses. So I kind of had that base level of understanding before actually I started building machine learning models. But for some people, it can be also valuable to start with AutoML and start building the models, and then actually start understanding how they build after the fact.
That's cool. So another question from the audience, from George, from zero knowledge to being able to have a good grasp of AI. How long does something like that take? Zero knowledge to a grasp of AI. I mean, I have an opinion, but I want to hear your expert opinion first. Marian.
What's your definition of a grasp? Then, of course, that depends.
I guess it depends. I mean,
yeah, it depends. It depends on the time of energy you put into it. Yeah, it really depends. I think I think there's sort of a norm that you need 10,000 hours to do something to master a subject. So might also work for AI.
Veronica, what do you think? Zero to zero.
I think as software engineers, we keep learning all our lives. So I can just put the deadline. Okay, you spend 2 weeks and you'll be super master of machine learning, because technologies are changing and everything is changing so rapidly, and we need to keep up with it. So it's just a constant learning process.
Yeah, so for me, like, I think understanding what AI isn't actually hard. Making AI work is hard. Just like if you know what a function is, that's easy. Like you have a grasp of what a function is, but writing functions to do certain tasks is definitely hard. To me, machine learning is a lazy way of writing functions with data. And I feel like, and now you understand AI. It's a lazy way of writing functions with data instead of code. Well, there is some code, but that's the way I see it. Willem, so it looks like your audio is back. Is that right?
Is this for one of us specifically, or you just want an answer? Yeah. Well, as mentioned prior, on Microsoft Docs, you have all kind of exercises you can start with. And also on Microsoft Learn, you get actually also the explanation and the exercises. So you can get videos, you get the data, and of course, normally it's linked also to GitHub. So there are a lot of, as Veronica already mentioned, there are a lot of tutorials out there. And yeah, and from really easy ones and out of the box copy paste to more mature models and things.
Veronica, you mentioned that you started with ML.net. Looks like Willem, they can't hear you right now, so I'm gonna talk over you because they can't hear you anyways. So tell us about ML.net. Is that the main framework that you use, or are there others?
Yeah, I'm mostly working with ML.net since I'm a .NET developer. Mostly, I've been using C# for many years, and it was really easy for me to start with ML.net. There are other options there, TensorFlow, Onyx. There are so many different tools, but for now, I prefer ML.net.
How hard was it to pick up and actually get some models built?
For me, it was pretty easy because there is that model builder availability in the Visual Studio. Now, before you actually had to install it separately as an add-on, and now it is integrated with Visual Studio, so you don't need to install anything. You just need to open the model builder. It will use other ML capabilities, and then it will. It's just a UI tool where you can just pick and choose what you want, and it will train custom model using your custom data, and then you can just use it in all kinds of projects.
That's cool. And you've been able to get stuff working just using the model builder, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. So now, because we're about 5 minutes out before the next break, I want to make sure that I ask you both this, because I always come at AI from like I like building tools perspective, but you all make AI that people actually use, and that's the difference between me. Like I make demos and you make software. What ethical concerns do you have, or should people have, when they're creating AI-based models and using them in deployment? We'll start with you, Marian, to get us a sense for what ethical things we should have in mind when we build these things.
Yeah, a lot actually, because you make a lot of steps along, let's say, building your model. And first of all, I would say be aware of your sample. So is your sample really representing your population? And if it comes to people, well, of course, you can't just only use white male 50+ people perfect. That's not representing the population, I would say. So be sure you make sure that your sample is correct, right, to start with. And after that, as a researcher, you make steps, right? You make decisions. So make sure you document every step and share that with another researcher, so he or she can also validate what you've done. Because I think we're all biased. So in order to get that bias out of it, I think it's very good to collaborate with others and share your decisions, actually.
Veronica, sorry. Go ahead, Marian. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, please go ahead, Veronica.
No, you had a so, and I was like, oh man, she's going to say something so smart, and I wanted to like rain down the knowledge to rain down on me. Marian, go ahead. So
collaboration, I think that's good. It's a 2 hours principle, right? 2 people see more than just 1 person. And also make sure that, because normally a solution is not a one-man show or one-woman show, right? So also make sure that your team itself is diverse, right? Because if you have a developers team of only, let's say, 1 type of person, you have a probability that your model is also biased again. So, and of course, from an ethical perspective, I would be really concerned about what variables you're using. What are you doing with age? What are you doing with gender? What are you doing with education level and those kind of things? Are you setting people behind, for example. So sometimes it's so easy to include a lot of data, but you have to be aware of what you're including, or socioeconomic status of people. Are you allowed to do that? So you have to talk about it, I think. And make sure you write down every decision, I would say, because then you can share it and you can talk about it and you can improve it.
Your thoughts, Veronica, on ethical use of AI?
Yeah, that topic is really popular right now, and I'm actually super happy about it. We had a table talk discussion that I had a chance to be MC at. I was at Ignite. So we were discussing responsible AI and ethics in machine learning. We had great conversation. I personally learned a lot, and it's actually going back to Marian's point. We need to invite different opinions, people with different backgrounds, different age, so we can have input from all those people in order to understand better how AI should be created and how it should be processed better. And also, we need to remember, and we already mentioned that AI and machine learning, it is still a software. So you need to understand the whole process. You can use MLOps to deploy your models. You need to have that failure log so you understand what worked and what didn't work. And then based on that log, you can actually retrain your model to make it better. It is really important to pay attention to those as well.
That's really cool, the way you both like wrap this up really nicely for everyone, because Marian, you talked about like creating the model ethically, and Veronica, you wrapped it up with, just because you've made it ethically doesn't mean it can remain ethical. And so you have to continue to do operations over it, even after the model's out, to continue to improve the ethicality. This is not a real word. I wonder how they're going to sign it. The ethicality of a model. And so I love how you focused on the beginning, the process, and then Veronica, you focused on the end, the development and the ML ops of it. So I think we are done with this particular segment. Am I right on thinking that, Willem?
Yeah, so thank you very much, both of you, for answering our questions and the questions from the audience. And you can hear my audio is back again. Let's hope it sticks this time. Thank you very much again, and we will see Marian back later in the show to talk a little bit more about building custom AI solutions using custom computer vision. But first, I want to ask Veronica to, can you tell us a little bit about anomaly detection? I believe you prepared something for us. We had a little bit of a chat about it earlier this week, and I'm really curious about anomaly detection. So let's go over to that topic and see what people actually can do if they start using cognitive services in practice in their own projects.
Yeah, so good question. It's a brand new category of cognitive services. I think Microsoft started talking about a decision category only last year, and lots of services there were on preview, and this year they actually went GA. So it's really cool to play around with decision services like Anomaly Detector, Personalizer, and then the new one, the Anomaly Monitor. It is still on preview, but so before that, the new one, the new service that they actually showcased at the keynote just a couple of minutes ago, there was that Anomaly Detector service, and I think it's the base of that new service. So it's important to understand how it works and how we can figure out anomalies in our data, whether we upload the whole data at once, like a batch of data, or we just keep upload and have that constant flow of data, and then we constantly analyze it and using the anomaly detector, and also we can connect it to different notifications. So it is just really important to understand what those anomalies are and how we can use that information to prevent them in the future.
So we're talking here about data that's not normal, actually. So in what situations would I actually use an anomaly detector?
There are so many applications for that. I think probably the most straightforward one is analyzing your data from your website, like how many people, if you have, for example, if you have a blog and you have that statistics of how many people actually go and read it every day, you can see that one day maybe a triple amount of people decided to check your blog, and actually that is a possibility of a DDoS attack, but maybe not. Maybe you just posted a great blog post and everyone decided to check it out. So the anomaly detector will detect that anomaly, and it's up to you to understand what was the cause. But it is just the basic example. But if you are out there in like factories and you are working with more serious data, like some kind of statistical information from devices, then it's really important to monitor and make sure that nothing is broken and everything is working as it's supposed to work. Otherwise, it can be dangerous or it can break lots of things related to it.
So can you show us how to actually use the anomaly detection service in Azure to build an anomaly detector?
Sure, yeah. Let me share my screen.